What is up, everybody? Thank you for joining us at PackersNews.com. Another Green Bay Packers season is behind us, gentlemen. I'm Wes and Mike, joined alongside Mike Vandermoss and Pete Doherty, following the Green Bay Packers' 8-8-1 season, which concluded, Mike, in a loss to the San Francisco 49ers. A year of a lot of adversity for the Packers. Obviously, they ended up the season with 15 guys on injured reserve. How do you view this? Did they achieve, underachieve, overachieve? What's your estimation of what this Packers team did this season?
You know, there are different ways to look at it. I know some people maybe are willing to torch the whole thing and burn it down and start from scratch. I tend to lean on the other side. I mean, they made the playoffs. They won the division. I realize it was a weak division, but they took advantage of that. In light of the fact that Aaron Rodgers missed half the season, Randall Cobb missed 10 games, Michael Finley missed, I think, 11 games. In light of all that, for them to make the playoffs with all the other injuries they had as well, I have to view it as a decent season. Now, it's never a success unless you win it all. I realize that, and they didn't win a playoff game. Still, in light of all those factors, I'm going to say it was a successful season.
Pete, you've been here now for over 20 of these Packers seasons. I know you remember each one vividly. But this season, what did you think of what you saw from the Packers, and was it a disappointment considering the expectations they had?
Well, this is the first year I've covered where they've had a huge chunk of the season where they haven't had, an elite quarterback. And because I started in '93, and they learned, what life can be like on the other side of that fence, and it's not pretty. 2-5-1 in the games Rodgers missed. So, I think if he'd played, chances are they'd have been an 11-5, 12-4 team. I think San Francisco was just a little bit better than them, which played out in the playoff game. They won by 3 points at the end. So I think the Packers are still, right there amongst the teams that'll be competing for championships each year. They obviously need some help in a couple areas, though, to catch up with where San Francisco and Seattle are right now.
Well, the 2013 season is behind us now. Like life in the NFL, everything moves forward and we move on. Mike, I'm going to turn this to you first. Before we get into the free agents that the Packers are facing, how do you think this team sets up going forward right now for what they have in place and the guys that are under contract for next season?
They have some holes on defense. There's no question about that. They, have to get another safety, probably another inside linebacker, maybe through the draft or free agency if Ted Thompson would go that way. I don't think this team is that far off. I mean, you look at that San Francisco playoff game. I mean, they played them to the wire. If Micah Hyde intercepts that pass, they probably win that game. And I think San Francisco is probably the second best team in the NFL right now behind Seattle. So from that standpoint, I don't think the Packers are that far off. They've got to make some improvements on defense. There's no question about that. If they don't, they'll probably be another perennial one-and-done playoff team. But with Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback, a Super Bowl berth is always possible.
All right, well, let's get into the free agents that the Packers are facing. I picked out 10 of them, Pete, to look at. We'll just run them down right here. Sam Shields, B.J. Raji, Evan Dietrich Smith, James Jones, Jermichael Finley, Ryan Pickett, Johnny Jolly, Mike Neal, James Starks, and John Kuhn. Just give me a couple out of that group that you think are important pieces the Packers need to really consider bringing back next year.
There's one real important one there, Sam Shields. Cornerback is a position where guys get hurt a lot, and you need really good covermen in this league, and he's probably the best one they have. I think he's gotten to the point where he's a little better than Tramon Williams, so I would think he'd be the highest priority. B.J. Raji, that's just a matter of cost. I mean, if you're the Packers, is $5 million a year okay for bringing him back? Maybe, probably. You get much higher than that, though, and which I don't know if another team will pay him more than that or not, but if they will, then maybe you have to let him walk. As painful as that would be, he's a big, talented guy, but he just hasn't been the playmaker that you need for paying somebody that kind of money.
Michael, switch it over to you. Obviously, Pete mentioning Shields and Raji, two big pieces there. Who else do you think out of that group, the Packers might need to consider? Not the giant playmakers, but, some important pieces.
I'm going to say Evan Dietrich Smith. I think they ought to bring him back because I just look at what happened when they let Scott Wells go a couple of years ago and, thought they could replace him with a Jeff Saturday who was washed up. I think they struggled a lot, especially in the run game. I just think Dietrich Smith has really kind of developed. I mean, he's not great by any means, but I think he's getting better. And what do you have for an alternative? I mean, you might think J.C. Treader could get thrown in there, but, I mean, the guy was injured most of his rookie season, so you can't just expect that he'd go in and be a contributor right away. So I think they need to bring EDS back.
All right, guys, that does it for another Packers season. Was it fun? Did you enjoy it?
As always, Wes.
There's nothing more fun, Wes.
We thank you guys for tuning in all year long with our videos and stories on PackersNews.com. Stay with us throughout the offseason for more updates and seeing how the Packers deal with their 20 free agents. Until next time, for Mike and Pete, I'm Wes Hodkowitz, and we'll see you later.